thins out even more.
You guys won.
Okay. Thought our team played very well Saturday night. Overall, obviously much better in the second half than the first, but you judge the game in its entirety. You don't judge it in segments, and so overall we played a good football game against a really good opponent. A lot of positives in that game, particularly in the second half, as I mentioned. Offense came out. We had 4 possessions in the second half and 4 long touchdown drives. 60-plus, 70-plus yard drives, no short fields. The offense did a great job moving the football in the second half. Defense pitched a shutout in the second half, and that was the end result. Because of that was a win, which puts us in good shape. Still a lot of football left, obviously. What are we, a third of the way through conference play? And so we've got a lot of challenges starting this week. Oregon State. Good football team, really good football team, running the heck out of the football, leading the Pac-12 by a considerable margin, running the football. 2 good backs that are very productive. Starts with our offensive line. Their offensive line is playing exceptional football, and that's something that we've got to try to take care of this week is slow them down a little bit in the run game. Quarterback's playing well. They're leading the conference in scoring as well as rushing, like I mentioned, as well as third down conversions, which when you run the football that well, it lends itself to a lot of third and shorts, which they're taking advantage of. So big challenge. It's on the road, a tough place to play up there in Corvallis, but we'll hopefully have a good week of practice and be ready to go. So questions?
In these last couple wins, sorry.
No, you're good.
In these last couple wins, second half defense has been much better than first half defense. What kind of has to happen in order to have kind of like a full game of solid?
Well, like I say, you judge the game in its entirety. You don't judge it in segments. And so when you judge it in its entirety, we played pretty good defense, held them under 400 yards, well below what they were averaging, below what they were scoring. And so I think we are playing good defense overall. Just happens to be that we're playing a little better in the second half than the first right now. But we're not really concerned about that. We're just concerned with the final product and the final result. And so, it would be great to play great defense every single snap of the game, but things ebb and flow during the course of a game. And same with our offense. And this year, for whatever reason, we've proven to be a pretty good second half team. I mean, our fourth quarter scoring differential is really good. It's like 70-something to 20 or thereabouts. And so we seem to be a little stronger in the second half this year. Each year's a little bit different, but that's been our MO. Don't have a great answer for you other than our guys do a really good job, our players, of hanging in there and overcoming adversity and handling adversity, and that's been the storyline this year.
What kind of schematic changes play into that? I mean, obviously you make adjustments
Right.
during the game, but
Yeah, halftime adjustments are big and play into that, and I think is a credit to our assistant coaches and the coordinators to come in at halftime and make those adjustments. Now, you got to make them all throughout the game. It's not just halftime, because if you wait till halftime, it's too late a lot of the times. And so, just coming in from the first half, sitting down together, talk about what's happening, what we want to change, and what we want to tweak going forward. And again, our coaches have done a really good job of setting up our players to be successful in the second half.
Kyle, we had some fun, with the Covey penalty and the flexing, but he generally doesn't show that level of emotion during a game. What did you think of that end of it, just the emotion that he showed there?
I loved it. I didn't love the penalty, but I love the juice and the emotion and the passion. And we were making plays all over the place in that second half. We had so many guys make big plays. Cam Rising played exceptional in the second half, as we talked about in the post-game press conference. But I'm not condoning penalties, but I love enthusiasm and guys that are really excited to play and have a passion for what they're doing.
Following up on that, obviously winning cures a lot, but it seems like this team is having a lot of fun. I mean, where is this coming from? I mean, in the post-game videos, you're jumping around with them. Like, where is this kind of coming around together?
Well, every team has its own personality and its own chemistry, I guess you could say, and this team is really fun to be around. There's a lot of great leaders, and the leadership has been outstanding from the onset. But the personality of this team is just more, I don't want to say jovial, but they're having a lot of fun this year. And these guys, we got a lot of guys that love football, and it shows. And that's what you want. You want guys that love football, and that's what has been exuded during the course of the season.
When you were in the locker room with the guys, celebrating and all that, did you expect them to pick you up?
No, that doesn't happen often. But that was. It was just in the moment. You're in the moment. You're so excited for them, and they played so well in that second half. And it didn't look good at halftime, 21-7 against a top 20 team, and we hadn't, other than the first drive on offense, we hadn't got a lot go on the first and the last drive, where we turned it over at the end, which was a negative. But we did move the ball well. But in between, there was not much going on, and then to see the production and the explosiveness in the second half was really exciting.
Coach, Mika didn't register a sack, but he was creating a lot of pressure throughout the game. How valuable is that to have an edge rusher like that?
Very valuable, and you can't have too many of those guys. The most valuable commodities for a defensive coordinator are edge rushers and shutdown corners. And he's a premier edge rusher. And even though we didn't come up with the sack, I think we had 5 sacks. Actually, the stats were wrong. I think we got credited now for 5. But Mika's responsible for knocking the guy off his spot and flushing him around and letting other guys clean up and get the sack. But right now, Mika's leading the Pac-12 in sacks, so he's doing a good job. But an even better job than what is showing up statistically.
At the beginning of the season, you predicted that Devin Lloyd would probably be the highest drafted linebacker from your program. Obviously, he's had a really good season this year. What is it about him that works? Do you allow him just kind of do what he needs to, or what goes on there?
No, he plays within the structure and the framework of the defense, but we utilize him in a lot of different ways. You saw us bring him off the edge quite a bit so far this season. What makes him a good football player is just a myriad of things. He's got great size. He's nearly 6'3", 200, just pushing 240 pounds. He runs like a deer. He's instinctive. He's got a long wingspan. You see him tip balls quite often, particularly on the pass rush. He's got his hands on 2 or 3 balls this year. He's a playmaker. He's a guy that when there's a play there to be made, he almost always makes it. And he is an absolute football junkie and student of the game. He watches as much film during the course of a week as anybody we've ever had here.
Kyle, what makes Corvallis and Reeser Stadium such a tough place to play?
Don't know. It's you typically got a pretty boisterous crowd. It's just an environment that is one of the tougher places to play in the Pac-12. And I just, other than the fans and the overall environment, I don't have a great answer for you. But it has proven to be a tough place. Although last time we were there, we started out incredible in the first half. I think it was 35-0 in mid-second quarter. So that game was not typical of a game that you have in Corvallis, and we're expecting a hard-fought battle.
Now that we're at the halfway point of the season overall, can you assess the offense, defense, and special teams at this point?
Okay, offensively, I think we're just starting to hit our stride. We sputtered in the first few games, first 3 or 4 games, but the last 2 or 3 we've started to, well, for sure the last 2 started to figure out who we are, who we got to get the ball to, and how we got to get them the ball. Tavion Thomas is starting to emerge as more of a run threat, which gives us more in the run game. Defensively, I think that we've been fairly consistent throughout the course of the season. Certainly had some problems in the run defense early on. We seem to have shored that up. So I just think that overall we're doing we're trending in the right direction, I think, as a football team. Special teams wise, hasn't been a lot of huge impact plays on special teams. We did have the big punt return, and of course we've given up some things in the kickoff return game. So it's been a little bit of give and take in the special teams, but I think we're holding our own is probably a good way to say it in the special teams.
Going over the last three games of how you guys have played, is this the Utah football team that you thought you guys were?
Yes, it is. This is what we had in mind and what we had envisioned, and it just took us a little bit to get there. A few more games than we'd like to get there.
When did Fonte do to himself that he's wearing a cast?
Yeah, he's got a hand injury.
That happened at USC?
Yeah.
there any season-ending injuries? I know you had a couple.
Yeah, we have our long snapper. We lost Keegan Margraf, which is it's a big blow. Although JT Greep, the guy that backed him up, came in and did a great job, and we expect him to continue to do that. Very talented young snapper. He's just a freshman, but Keegan will be, unfortunately, he's a captain. You know, he's one of our leaders, and that says something when a special teams guy gets voted captain, because that's not real common. But he's unfortunately done for the year. We'll miss him, and he was, a big part of our special teams for the last several years.
We don't talk a ton about the long snapper, but just in general, how critical is it to have a confident long snapper?
Absolutely critical, and as soon as you notice them, that's a bad thing. You know, as long as you're not noticing the snappers, that means that everything's going as it should, and we haven't noticed Keegan hardly at all because he's been so consistent. And so that's a big factor. But like I said, we have all the confidence in the world in JT, and expect that he'll get the job done.
On offense, you've had a pretty diverse group. You don't necessarily have that one guy that you can focus on.
Mm-hmm.
Is that kind of the way that you hope to maintain it, in a way that allows opponents to not really key in on a guy, or how
Yeah,
do you hope to?
exactly. We've got 5, 6, 7 weapons that we've utilized and that are getting the majority of the touches. The emergence of Devon Vele has been a big positive for us. We knew the tight ends going into the season were going to be a group that was going to be tough to defend, but with Devon doing what he's doing, Covey is Covey. You know, there's no surprise there. He's in fact, we probably need to do a little better job of getting him a few more touches. Theo Howard's added some timely catches. Like I said, the tight ends have been productive from day one. And Tavion, as I mentioned, has really bolstered the running. It's kind of got to the point now where Tavion and TJ are getting the vast majority of the reps at running back.
Following up on that, you talked about the tight ends. What does having a group like you have with Brant, Dalton, Cole, Thomas, and Aligi, what does that allow you to do on offense with their ability in blocking?
Yeah, it allows you to do a lot of stuff. And as a former defensive coordinator, that's the toughest groups to defend, is the multiple tight end groups, 12 and 13 personnel, where they have 2 or 3 out there. And there's just so many different ways you can utilize them, and particularly when they have the receiving skills that our guys do, where you can split them out. You know, we put Brant out at wide receiver a good proportion of the time, and Dalton is such a tremendous receiver. Cole, not as elusive as the other 2, but he runs great routes and gets open. And so when you got tight ends that can block and catch, that's a great combination and a great matchup problem for defenses. And it is, like I said, as a former coordinator, that's the one, and that's the groups 12 and 13 that make it the most difficult for you to defend and make sure you're not outflanked or out leveraged in the run game, and you get good matchups when they're split out and in the pass game.
Coach, you talked about earlier how much fun this team is having. Did Covey have anything to say about your cheeky hairline comment?
I give him that grief all day, every day. So that's nothing new. It's just he's a great kid, and he's very proud of the results, by the way, of his role. I mean, it's working, and so it's filling in nicely. But Cov is a special kid, and loved having him in the program. He's been here a long time, as everybody knows, but it's all in good fun. I certainly hope there's no hard feelings. He hasn't indicated that. So he's a very confident kid. Go ahead. No.
I mean, to cut you off. After seeing the defensive performance in the second half, at least for me, I was pretty impressed by that. Are you the kind of coach, and I'm just curious, who thinks defense wins championships?
You know what? It used to be much more prevalent in your success than it is now, and I'm a kind of a statistics geek, as David James calls me, and a guy that likes to look at stats and numbers. And in this day and age of football, I've seen breakdowns where offense is responsible for 50% of your success or lack thereof, defense 35%, and special teams 15%. And so it's diminished a little bit in its impact on the game. Offense is taking more of a front seat, but it's still very important. And the best thing is to be good on both sides of the ball, but the real impact of the game has shifted to more of an offensive impact.
With the numbers and everything there, it seems like you've been much more confident in wanting to be aggressive in those short situations, maybe 4th and 2 or other situations. Is it that because of the offense, or what's kind of the strategy there behind you and how you pick that?
As far as when we go for it on 4th down, well, analytics is involved in that a lot. We have a book and a system or program that we use that gives me good information as far as making that decision. We follow it fairly closely, but not exactly. How confident or how good your field goal kicker has been playing, how much your offensive line has been controlling the game. There's a lot of factors that go into it. When you look at it, I think we're about average in the league as far as goes on fourth down, and so I don't think we're going for it excessively, but certainly more than we used to. And again, the driving impetus of that is probably the analytics part of it, where it's just set up. Here's, it's science. I mean, here's what it is for the reward for a field goal as opposed to a touchdown, the risk reward of it all, and so it's changed. And I think you're seeing more aggression from most all offenses in that category than certainly you saw 10 years ago.
Coach, in the defensive secondary, it seemed like you guys played a bit more man coverage than previous games. Do you feel like you're seeing the progress out of that group to give you confidence in that?
Yeah, we are, and we're still not to the point where we need to be. It's still a work in progress, and we're playing with three true, freshmen. Not true. I don't know what a true freshman is anymore. But guys that are freshmen that still have a redshirt year, and used to be called true freshmen. But with Clark and Fabian and Zamaya, and so those three freshmen are making strides, and we're gaining more confidence in them. And but again, we don't want to we got to be smart. You got to put your players in position to succeed and put them in positions where they can be successful. And too high of a dose of man coverage for those guys right now is not a good thing for them. So you got to be intelligent about how you go about it. And I think Coach Scally has been very intelligent of mixing a good dose of zone in there.
Have you actually been able to get any kind of grasp of what the conference has been right now? It seems like, whenever there's a favorite team going in, they end up losing to a team that
Right.
really shouldn't happen. I mean, is this about as jumbled as you've seen the conference?
Yeah, but that's the Pac-12. For a lot of years, it hasn't had a clear-cut dominant team that nobody can beat. It's just a situation of you better be ready to play every week, and every week, like I said, it was a week or two ago, you're going to see scores that surprise you in the Pac-12 every week. Like I didn't see that one coming, I didn't see this one coming, and so I think it's a situation where there's a lot of balance, and if you're not ready to play, you're going to get beat. So got to be ready.
In scheme,
Final question.
in scheme and personnel, who does the Oregon State running game compare to?
Well, there's similarities between them and the ASU scheme that we just saw. ASU is more counter gap scheme. There's not very little gap scheme in the Oregon State run game. It's more stretch and zone. But yeah, probably there's carryover from last week, I would say.
And in terms of personnel, who do they compare to?
Well, very similar offensive line wise too. Arizona State's O-line is very efficient and productive and physical, and this line's very much very similar. And so I would say in that regard, Arizona State, they've got two backs that are carrying the workload, number 4 and number 5, both averaging over 6 yards a carry. They're averaging darn near 6 yards a carry as a team, which is outstanding. And those backs are like 6.8 and 6.3 a carry, so they got a good combination between those two. But like I said, there is a lot of carryover in the run game from last week to this week. That's it? You cut me off? I'm just getting going. Okay, all right. Could have done that forever.